Welcome to Lesson 2, where we are going to look at salutations. Salutations is an area that discusses how we address someone. Dear Simon, hi Simon, dear Mr. Porter, how do we address someone? If we address someone correctly, this is a good start to the email. Address someone badly, and they probably won't read your email. So how do you address someone? Some general rules. 1. Always try to find out who you are writing to. And there are a couple of reasons for this. 1, readers don't pay much attention to dear sir or madam, or even worse, if you call them reader or something like this, or employee or tenant or user. When a reader reads this as a salutation, immediately the reader thinks, it's not for me. This isn't important. I can just ignore this. But if you say to someone, dear Mr. Porter, then I know that information is for me and I pay more attention to it. It also shows that you care. It shows that you've done some research and you found out who is the right person. If you write to someone you know and you say, dear sir, this isn't a term of respect. This is just laziness. This shows me that we don't have a relationship, that you might not know who I am, so why should I take this email seriously? So always try to find out who it is that you're writing to. If you have a style guide at work, it might have a section on salutations. So if you're working in a big company or a small company, and that company has a style guide, have a look at the style guide and follow those rules. As a general rule, you should always have the rule of first contact, which is to start formal and follow the lead. In other words, if you write Dear Mr. Brown and Mr. Brown then says, Hi Simon, then I can say, Hi Dan. So this is the rule of first contact. Start formal, and if the response is informal, then you can continue in that way. However, there's one thing to be careful of, and that's hierarchy. So if you are writing to someone who is more important in their work than you are, so you as a junior lawyer are writing to a partner, then you would say, Dear Mr. Brown, and the partner would say, Hi Simon. So because I respect that hierarchy, I would say, Dear Mr. Brown, and I wouldn't say, Hi Dan. But this is an office cultural issue. Some offices are okay with this. Some offices really think carefully about rules of hierarchy. So the first salutations are if you know who you are talking to. So if you have a look at the examples behind me, Dear Mr. Brown, Dear Mr. Brown. So we've got the UK and the US approach, which are essentially the same apart from that full stop. So in the American approach, you can see Dear Mr. full stop Brown. Please do not write Dear Mr. Simon. That is Dear Mr. plus first name. This is an incorrect form in the English language. In other languages, you might be able to do this, Polish, for example, but in English, you cannot. If you're writing to women, Dear Ms. Brown, Dear Ms. Brown, as you can see, it's the UK-US rule with the full stop. If you know that the woman you are writing to is single, then write Miss. If you know that the woman that you're writing to is married, then you can write Mrs. However, in today's modern world, it's simply easier and safer for you to address all women as Ms. And a word about titles. Please include titles in the salutation. So, as you can see the format behind me. Dear, title, surname. So, Dear Judge Brown, Dear Professor Porter, Dear Doctor, whoever it might be. Now, if you don't know who you're writing to, as you can see behind me, it's a little bit more complex. So let me walk you through this. Dear sir, you're writing to a man. Dear madam, you're writing to a woman. But of course you don't know who they are. Dear sirs, you're writing to a group of men. Dear mesdames, you're writing to a group of women. Dear sir or madam, you're writing to one person, but you don't know if they are a man or a woman. Dear sir and madam, you're writing to a couple. You know that they're a couple. For example, it could be a married couple, but you don't know exactly who they are. Now, this is where I go back to make sure you know who you're writing to before you write. Because if you're writing to dear sir and madam, to be honest, you probably should know who you're writing to. But if you don't, dear sir and madam. It could be possible, if you don't like any of those, to group people somehow. So if you're writing to shareholders, you could say dear shareholders. If you're writing to the partners in a law firm, then you could say dear partners, and so on, so on. So if you can group people in some way, then that might be another way to do it. The last case scenario that you should choose is the bottom one here, to whom it may concern. This is you would only use this in very rare circumstances, because for a couple of reasons. One, it shows that you've gone to no effort to find out who you should be writing to. The person who reads it probably won't be very impressed that you haven't tried to find out who the person is. But there are some circumstances where you do just have to write to whom it may concern. Those are what we would call formal salutations. However, there are lots of informal salutations. The problem with informal salutations is that there are, as you can see, no real rules. So if you have got a style guide in your place of work, then look at the style guide and see if that sets out what the rules would be. But generally speaking, hello or hi is okay. But this is an area, because there are no rules about writing emails, that this is different from company to company, even different from person to person within that company. So people have personal preferences. My advice to you would be to always use a salutation, for example, and not just say Simon. So when I receive an email and the salutation is just Simon, then to me, automatically it makes the email sound quite negative. There is some kind of bad news. So I don't like receiving emails which just say Simon. However, for other people, this is not a problem. The other thing to talk about is emails as a text message conversation. Sometimes you're writing emails to one another and the passage of emails is quite quick. So I send an email, I get a response. I send an email, I get a response. In that circumstance, sometimes it's a little bit silly to keep on writing, Dear Adam, dear Adam, dear Adam, dear Adam. At that point, once again, it depends on the culture, it depends on the company, it depends on hierarchy. But it could be better to not have salutations and treat this as a text message conversation. Okay, now it's time for some questions. Have a look at the salutations behind me and think, is it a good salutation or not? I'm going to disappear for a few minutes, so just have a think about them, and then when I come back, we'll have a look at the answers. Okay, let's see how well you did. So these are the answers. Are these good salutations or not? Hiya, not really. In a normal circumstance, if you know someone really, really well, or you're writing to someone in the same company, then it might be okay. But writing hiya to someone else in a different company, it's not good. Dear Simon, yep, absolutely fine. We can say that. It's personal, but still formal. Mr. Simon, as I said a few minutes ago, in English this would be an incorrect form. Dear Ms. Brown, good. Please note there is no full stop, so this is following the UK format. Good morning. It depends. If you know someone well, then it could be okay to say good morning. But if you don't have a good working relationship with someone, then I would say that this is a mistake. What's up? Definitely no. Hello, Simon? Yes. Hi, Simon. Hello, Simon. It's good for me. Simon, for me personally, I hate this. As I said a few minutes ago, for other people, this won't be a problem. So it's a question of personal preference. So that's the lesson on salutation. As you can see, there are quite a lot of rules, particularly with formal salutations. But if you're writing to the same groups of people over and over again, you quickly learn those rules. But in case you forget any rules, then come back to this video and you'll hopefully find what you are looking for. Okay, with that being said, let's get on to lesson 3.